to all of you to the BDRAL monthly webinar. I'm Samira Sohani, your host for today's session. I'm currently working as a research associate in the Bangladesh Rating Agency Limited, a subsidiary of Dun & Bradstreet South Asia Middle East Limited. Thank you all for joining us for this enlightening discussion on 4 decades of Islamic banking in Bangladesh: progress, prospect, and challenges. Before we begin, let me take a moment to introduce our esteemed panel of speakers. We have the privilege to introduce 5 distinguished experts who possess vast knowledge and experience in the field of Islamic banking. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Khaled Mahmud Raihan, FCCA. Raihan sir is a Senior Vice President of Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited at Managing Director Secretariat. Before that, he had served at the Corporate Investment Division of that same bank. He also worked as the Head of Financial Administration Division of IBBAL. Mr. Raihan has completed his BBA degree majoring in finance and banking from University of Dhaka. He has also completed his MBA from University of Dhaka majoring in finance. He is a fellow member of Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. He is also a fellow member of Institute of Certified General Accountants of Bangladesh. We have the very privilege to have you with us, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Then our next panelist is Mr. Shamsud Doha. Mr. Shamsud Doha is an Executive Vice President and Head of Sharia Secretariat of Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited. Sir has over 25 years of experience in the field of Islamic banking. Notably, he is the author of several significant books in Islamic banking and has contributed numerous articles that have been published in the various national and international newspapers and research journals. Mr. MD Shamsud Doha, sir, has completed his BSS honors and MSS in international relationship, respectively from University of Dhaka. Later, he obtained a diploma in higher Islamic studies from Darul Ihsan University. He has also obtained a certified Sharia advisor and auditor of professional fellowship in Sharia advisory and Sharia auditing offered by AAOIFI. So we are very, very much privileged to welcome Mr. Shamsud Doha, sir. And we are also very, very privileged to welcome our next panelist, Mr. AKM Mizanur Rahman, CIPA, CSAA. Sir is an Executive Vice President and Head of Islamic Banking in Eastern Bank Limited. Sir is a keen banking professional, having more than 25 years of banking experience, mostly in Islamic banking operations. Sir has completed his MA in Mass Communication and Journalism from University of Dhaka. He has gained his Master's of Business Administration, majoring in finance from Darul Ihsan University. He is a certified Islamic professional accountant and also a certified Sharia advisor and auditor. So we warmly welcome you, sir, to today's program. So we are also very, very much honored to have our next panelist, Mr. Professor Dr. H.M. Mosharraf Hossain. Sir is currently working as a professor in the Department of Finance in the University of Dhaka. Sir has completed both bachelor's and master's majoring in finance and banking from University of Dhaka. He has completed his PhD in finance from University of Dhaka as well. And he has more than 24 years of teaching experience. Dr. Mosharraf has published 25 research articles, 2 research monographs, and 1 textbook titled Financial Markets and Institutions for BBA and MBA program. We are very much honored to have such an distinguished person, professional to today's program. And last but not the least, we have our Honorable CEO, Sir, Dr. Saeed Abdullah Al Mahmud, FCMA, as the moderator of today's program. Apart from being the CEO of BDRAL, Dr. Mahmud is the Independent Director and Chairman of Audit and Finance Committee, Board of Directors, Northwest Power Generation Company Limited. He's an Independent Director of FAS Finance and Investment Limited. Dr. Mahmud earned his PhD in Finance from School of Management, Asian Institute of Technology, AIT. He has completed BBA in Accounting and MBA in Strategic Management Accounting, both from Department of Accounting and Information System of University of Dhaka. Dr. Mahmud is a certified professional, cost and management accountant, and fellow member of Institute of Cost and Management Accountants of Bangladesh. So we are very, very honored to have such esteemed professionals with us today, who will share their insights on the progress, prospect, and challenges of Islamic banking in Bangladesh over the past 4 decades.
At this stage, we are very delighted to have our keynote speaker, whom we know since long as an enthusiastic of this area. He has not only been working in that industry for the long, but also he's a very passionate to explore the knowledge in the area of the Islamic banking and the finance. So that is none other than Khaled Mahmud Raihan. May I request you to present your keynote space? I think half an hour will be fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to share my screen. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Honorable moderator of this today's webinar, Mr. Saeed Mahmud, Chief Executive Officer, Bangladesh Rating Agency Limited. Respected panelist, Dr. H.M. Musharraf Hussain, Professor, Department of Finance, University of Dhaka. Mr. Mohammad Shamsud Doha, Executive Vice President and Head of Sharia Secretariat, Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited, and Mr. A.K.M. Mizanur Rahman, Executive Vice President and Head of Islamic Banking, Eastern Bank Limited. Distinguished participants from different professional bodies, including ICAB, ICMEB, ICSB, FCCA, participants from different banks, non-bank financial institutions, corporate houses, rating agencies, regulatory bodies, my professional colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It is indeed a great privilege and honor for me to be invited as the keynote speaker on a very, very relevant topic, 4 decades of Islamic banking in Bangladesh, progress, prospects, and development, and challenges. So I'd like to express my gratitude to BDRAL Authority for arranging such a time-befitting webinar. As you all know that they have organized this webinar in such a moment when Islamic banking industry is actually approaching towards 4 decades of its operation. And you all know 40 years is very significant. In this sense, it indicates maturity, it indicates taking responsibility, and it indicates to do something for the nation. And you all know that our Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has been given the Nabuwwat at the age of 40. So 40 years has a very historic significance. So I think this is a very timely webinar that has been organized by BDRAL Authority. So me, as Samira was talking about, I'm not going to talk about more detail on me. So how I have devised my today's presentation, I have actually covered as many as 7 areas today. First of all, I'll talk about different economic thoughts very briefly: capitalism, socialism, and communism. Then I'll talk about whether Islam has any economic thought or not. Then we will talk about basis, objective, strategies of Islamic economics. Then we'll talk about Islamic banking and its journey, 40-year journey in Bangladesh and its contribution. And finally, we'll talk about the prospects and the way forward. This is how I actually devised my presentation. I'll try to complete it within 30 to 35 minutes, as the moderator was talking about. Then we will inshallah close the session. So as you all know, that mainly there are three economic thought: capitalism, socialism, and communism. So if we look at the basic principles of capitalism, capitalism is driven by market economy, where profit is actually the prime motive. And individual and enterprises are free to actually own asset without having any entry and exit barrier. And prices are determined by competitive market mechanism. Despite all the fact, capitalism was not successful because of some inherent limitation. Because you all know, in absence of moral values, no binding is there to maximize the profit, which result to create monopolies, and ultimately it exploit the whole society. And in some cases, government and industrialists join hands together for mutual benefit and ultimately exploit the common people. And in a capitalistic society, we see it creates imbalances in distribution of wealth. As such, rich become more rich and poor become more poor. So that's why nowhere in the world capitalism was successful due to these limitations. If we look at the basic principle of socialism, you see, as opposed to capitalism, socialism is driven by control market economy, where public owns all means of production and decisions are collectively taken, where no social classes is there. Despite having some good things in socialism, it also did not succeed, because in case of socialism, individuals lose their incentive to work and government again becomes a dictatorship, and less entrepreneurial opportunity and competition is there. As such, slow economic growth follows. If we look at the communism aspect, basic principles of communism, communism is another economic thought where it is driven by controlled government planned economy. There is no private ownership of goods or asset. Rather, goods and assets are distributed or available to the people when needed. So there is no existence of social class as well. And in this case also, we have seen that everything is distributed equally. Dictatorship is, government is there, and productivity and efficiency are very difficult to achieve. Ultimately, people never achieve their goal. So due to this limitation, none of the economic thought is actually is prevailing in anywhere in the world in real sense of the term. So now the question comes whether Islam has any economic thought or not. So if we see, indeed, Islam has definitely is an economic thought. In the economic thought of Islam, two important things are considered. One is ownership of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we human being are the trustee or khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You all know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Holy Quran, in Surah Baqarah, ayat 30, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. Allah said to his angel, I want to create Khalifa on the earth. Then the angel said, will you place them who will commit evil things and shed bloods? Are we not enough to glorify you, uphold you, or mention your absolute authority? Then Allah said, Inni alamu ma la ta'lamun. This is the very important ayah in the Holy Quran, that I know that you do not know. So these are the two basic, principles, or two basic underlining guideline of Islamic economic thought. So Islamic economics actually deals with three basic questions. Also, these three basic questions is also addressed in conventional economics, but Islamic economics address this issue in a different dimension. First of all, what to produce? The production decision. In this case, Islamic economics consider three aspects: necessity, comfort, and beautification, which we call jaruriyat, haziyat, and tahsaniyat. They prioritize the need of the people. And then comes to how to produce, the management decision. In this case, Islamic economics try to solve the permissible mood and protecting the environmental issues and all these things. And thirdly, for whom to produce, the distribution decision, in this case, Islamic finance or Islamic economics considered the socio-economic justice. If we look at the objective of Islamic economics, there is mainly three objectives. Number one, ensuring general well-being, that is we call falah বা কল্যাণ, and promote better provisioning hasana, and finally and most importantly ensure justice, that is called adl, and excellence, that is called ihsan. In the Holy Quran, Surah Nahl, ayat number 90, Allah said, Inna Allaha ya'muru bil ma'ruf ya'muru bil adli wal ihsan. That means ensure justice and excellence in your activities. So this is the very fundamental objective of Islamic economics. So if we look at the chronology, as we have talked about, Islamic banking is definitely a part of Islamic economics, and ultimately Islamic banking is actually based on some maqasid al-sharia. This maqasid, the objective of Islamic banking is once again based on four basic foundation of pillar. Number one, the Quran, then Sunnah, then Ijma, that is consensus of Islamic scholar, and finally the Qiyas, which we call interpretation of points of Islamic law. So if we define Islamic bank, it is the very popular definition of Islamic banking given by OIC, Organization of Islamic Conference, that was held at Dakar, the capital of Senegal in 1978, where it has defined Islamic bank as a financial institution whose statutes, rules, procedures are expressly stated commitment to the principle of Islamic Sharia and to the banning of receipts and payments of interest in any of its operation. So Islamic bank is actually a participatory banking. If we analyze the definition of OIC, we'll get mainly two dimensions or two components. Number one, commitment to the principle of Islamic Sharia, that is the maqasid or objective side, and then banning or receipt of the payment of interest. This is actually the mechanism side. So in my presentation today, I will mainly focus on the maqasid aspect, because mechanism aspect is a very broad area. We will not cover all these things. And another reason is there because Mr. Saleh Kamil, many of you have heard the name of Mr. Saleh Kamil. He was the president of IDB, and in IDB's AGM in 2010, 35th AGM, he had given a very interesting observation. He said, over the past decades, academic researchers, banking practitioners, and Sharia scholars have emphasized more on procedural side of Islamic banking. The underlying strength of Islamic banking is maqasid of this system, which did not receive due importance. So this is the time I think we should give more emphasis on the maqasid aspect, because there are a lot of works have been done in the mechanism side. So if we look at the maqasid aspect of Islamic banking, there are mainly two dimensions or two broad area to ensure the objective of Islamic banking. Number one, maximizing the welfare or the maximization of welfare, and secondly, the elimination of ill-being. So these the two main objectives. Based on this objective of Islamic banking, we actually prioritize the Islamic banking issues. So what are the priorities? The priority areas are, in case of Islamic banking, distributive justice in resource allocation, need-based and welfare-oriented banking, and it is not at all a greed-based banking. Then comes to it is designed to ensure mass and universal welfare, and moral filtering is there in terms of providing financial services. Ethical aspect of banking is actually the key role in this case. And finally, transfer payment, which is transferring the property or the wealth from the rich to the poor. This is also another the priority, which is being achieved by voluntary payment and compulsory payment. So compulsory payment, in case of compulsory payment, it is done by zakat and kafara, and in optional payment, it is done by waqfu and sadaqah. So if we look at the savings, mobilization of deposit in the light of maqasid al-sharia, we can identify some broad areas that are actually addressed in Islamic banking operation, like people's access to financial net. Islamic Bank always encourages small ticket size deposit to bring to the banking net, and financial inclusion term is actually inbuilt in the Islamic banking mechanism. And it also ensures masalih al mursala, which indicates benefit that is considered to be good in reasonable sense, and ensuring halal profit. It is another objective of saving deposit mobilization. As you all know, profit of the depositor is not fixed, rather it is actually linked or dependent on the investment income that is earned through deployment of Mudaraba fund. I'm not talking about this mechanism aspect today, as I have told you. And finally, safe custody of public money. It is also another important objective of Islamic banking. If we look at the objective of Islamic banking in terms of investment, we find out some priority area. It is not merely for profit maximization, as I have told you. It is done for the maximization of the welfare. And in case of Islamic banking, as I have told you earlier, it prioritizes the need of the people before financing or making investment. It gives priority to the necessity, then comfort, then beautification, that I have told you, jaruriyat, haziyat, and tahsaniyat, and all these things. And it considers the diversification of investment, and always discourages the concentration of wealth in few hands. As Allah said in the Holy Quran, Surah Hashor, that your wealth should not be distributed among few hands. So it does not invest in any product and services which are harmful for the society. That's why, even being profitable, Islamic banks in Bangladesh did not invest in a single penny in tobacco business. So these are the ethical aspects of being business or banking. And finally, it ensures to fulfill the basic needs and discourage the luxurious one. Say, for an example, if there are the two proposal comes to the bank, one is the Mercedes car, Benz car, and another is Volvo, which will carry more people. Definitely, Islamic Bank will focus on the Volvo, which will bring more people and spread the welfare among the many people of the society. So again, it actually emphasizes on investment which creates more employment generation instead of serving the purpose of the few people. So if we look at the journey of the Islamic banking in Bangladesh, you know, the journey started in 1974, and it is the dream of our Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who actually dreamed to Islamize the banking system gradually, and the dream and the dream was actually first implemented by signing the IDB charter, which was signed by the then finance minister of the Bangabandhu government, Mr. Tajuddin Ahmed. And in 1978, the definition of Islamic banking was approved by OIC that I had just shared with you a few minutes ago. And in 1979, ambassador of Bangladesh to UAE recommended the government to establish a bank like Dubai Islamic Bank. And in the same year, Ministry of Finance took opinion from the central bank. In 1980, Bangladesh Bank sent a representative team abroad to study more about Islamic banking. And in the subsequent year, in the third Islamic banking conference, the president of the conference actually gave his firm commitment to actually develop a separate banking system to facilitate trade and commerce. And in 1981, Ministry of Finance wrote to Bangladesh Bank to open separate Islamic banking counter in all branches of state-owned bank as a pilot project. And consequent to that, in 1982, IDB team visited Bangladesh and showed their interest to participate to establish in a joint venture Islamic bank in Bangladesh. And in the same year, BIBM conducted a training course on Islamic banking to develop the conceptual framework. There are a lot of events are actually taking place during this period. I have mentioned some very key or important areas. And finally, the dream of Islamic banking comes true in 1983, when Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited was incorporated as a first Sharia-based bank in not only in Bangladesh but also in Southeast Asia. So if we look at the 40 years journey of Islamic banking, in 1983, Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited was incorporated. And in 1987, Al Baraka Islamic Bank was incorporated. First, its name was Al Baraka. Then it fall in financial difficulty in 1994. And in 2004, it was renamed as Oriental Bank. And subsequently, in 2008, it was taken over by ICB Banking Group, and now it is known as ICB Islamic Bank, many of you know. And in 1995, two more banks were given license to operate Islamic banking. One is Al Arafa Islamic Bank and Social Islamic Bank Limited. And in 2001, another Islamic bank was given license, Shahjalal Islamic Bank. And 2004, the first bank, this is the first instance in Bangladesh where a conventional bank was converted into Islamic bank, Exim Bank. Although Exim Bank was actually started its operation in 1999, but it was converted into Islamic Bank in 2004. And in 2009, First Security Islamic Bank was given license, and in 2013, Union Bank was given license to operate Islamic banking. And in 2020, two conventional banks were allowed to operate through Islamic banking operation. One is Global Islamic Bank and Standard Bank. So these are the history I have just shortly mentioned due to time constraint. If we look at the Islamic banking industry in the last 4 decades, we see currently there are 34 banks that are actually conducting Islamic banking activities, and of which currently there are 10, as I have just mentioned, 10 full-fledged Islamic banks are there, having 1,605 branches, and there are currently 11 conventional banks that have 23 branches and 13 conventional banks that have 51 windows. So altogether, we have currently 2,139 units of branches and windows. So if we look at the Islamic banking, other aspect, like currently there are 50,000 people, employees are workers there in Islamic banking industry, and current deposit size is 410,000 crore, which contributes around 26% market share, and investment size is 405,000, which contribute around 30% market share of investment in the banking industry. This is the market share of deposit and investment of all Islamic banks. In case of deposit, IBBL takes the lead, having around 35% market share of deposit, followed by First Security Islamic Bank around 12%, Exim Bank around 11%, Al Arafa Bank slight over 10%, and Islamic banking window and branches contributed slight over 7%. And if you look at the condition of investment, you see in this case also IBBL takes the lead, where it contributes around 34% market share, followed by First Security Islamic Bank around 13% plus, then Exim Bank 11%, Al Arafa Bank around 10%, and Islamic Bank branches, conventional bank Islamic banking window and conventional bank Islamic bank branches contribute slight over 5% market share. So if we look at the contribution of Islamic banking from international trade and remittance dimension, you see during 2022, Islamic banking industry actually contribute import of taka 1,687 billion, which contribute 26% market share of whole import. And in case of export, it contributes 24% market share, having export volume of 1,171 billion. And in case of remittance, it contributes around 39%, contribute around 750 billion BDT. And it's obviously, I should mention that 1/4 of the remittance comes from Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited. So if we look at the contribution of Islamic banking from some dimension like deposit mobilization, as I have mentioned that that mobilization of deposit from the small ticket size or small depositor is actually the inbuilt mechanism of Islamic banking system, and it brought unbanked population to the banking net. And currently there are 2.85 crore deposit accounts is actually operated by Islamic banks in Bangladesh, which contribute around 21% of the deposit account of the whole banking industry, of which IBBL alone contribute 14% of the deposit accounts. And you know that although Bangladesh Bank instructed to open 10 taka deposit, it is around 2000, year 2000, but before that, IBBL and other Islamic banks started to open account at 10 taka deposit. So this is inbuilt mechanism of Islamic banking. I must say that. And in addition to that, there are some welfare-oriented deposit schemes like Mudaraba Waqf deposit, Mudaraba horse savings deposit, Mudaraba Moho savings deposit. These are the unique product of Islamic banking. And now these are replicated by other conventional banks as well. And if we look at the contribution of Islamic banking from different dimension of investment, you see, many of you can remember that textile and garments industry started booming from the year 2004 and 5. And during that time, Islamic Bank Bangladesh Limited actually takes the lead to actually build up this industrialization. And currently, there are more than 6,000 industrial units are there, which are operated by IBBL, of which more than 1,000 garments units are there. So this is very important pillar of Bangladesh, where Islamic banking industry has huge contribution in general and IBBL in particular. And currently, industrial finance market share of Islamic banks is around 27%. If we look at CMSME, small and medium, cottage and micro enterprises, it contributes 38% market share is contributed by Islamic banks. And if we look at agricultural investment, as you know, as part of national priority, Islamic banks gives emphasis on agricultural investment. Around 17% of the investment is contributed by Islamic banks, although there are some dedicated banks which are actually allowed to operate agricultural banking. Despite the fact it contributes around 70%. And in 2022, IBBL alone opened LC of $700 million against fertilizer, which contribute 63% of the total fertilizer import under government subsidy. So these are the basic thing, which we need to focus. And then comes to poverty alleviation. It is actually a unique product of IBBL, which has been replicated by other banks as well. It was introduced in 1995 as a Islamic microfinance model, where the member is around 16 lakh and many of them are women, around 92%. So Islamic banks contribute towards empowerment of women. And current deposit size is around 1,560 crore and investment client is around 9 lakh. And total outstanding investment is around 5,600 crore, having recovery of more than 99%. In addition to that, we have Islamic banking industry has some welfare-oriented investment schemes like household durable schemes, housing investment scheme, transport investment scheme, small business investment scheme, women entrepreneur scheme, etc. So these are all actually contributing towards the progress and development of the country. If we look at the contribution of Islamic banking from agent banking perspective, you see currently there are around 9,000 units of agent outlets are there, which are operated under Islamic Sharia or under Islamic banking, Islamic banks, which contribute around 19% of the total outlet. And in terms of deposit size, it's huge. These agent banking outlets of Islamic banks is around 18,000 crore, which contributes 59% of the deposit actually mobilized by agent banking operation. And in terms of number of deposit account, you see it is around 44 lakhs, which contribute 25% of the total deposit account mobilized by agent bankings. And in terms of remittance, it is also very encouraging figure. You see the remittance during 2022, the total remittance that were mobilized by agents of Islamic banks in Bangladesh is around 67,000 crore, which contribute around 58% market share. So if you look at the contribution of Islamic banking from socio-economic dimension, you see it actually employs, Islamic banking industry has employs huge employment opportunities, generated huge employment opportunity. Currently, there are around 1.2 crore people who are actually employed by Islamic banking system. And it also has huge contribution in building foreign exchange reserve. I must mention it because IBBL alone contributed USD 12 billion US dollars since its inception by selling foreign exchange reserve to Bangladesh Bank, which actually helped to build our foreign exchange reserve. So it is very special case in case of IBBL. And in terms of contribution to the national exchequer, you see during 2022, Islamic banks contributed around 6,700 crore taka to the national exchequer, either in the form of corporate tax, VAT, AIT, and all these things. And if we look at the corporate social responsibility dimension, as you all know, it is another area that is inbuilt in the Islamic banking system. So in corporate social responsibility during 2022, total corporate out of total expenditure under CSR, IBBA, Islamic banking industry expense was 1,129 crore, which contribute around 50% of the expenses of the whole banking industry. And IBBL alone contributed around 29% market share. And in case of, implementation of stimulus packages, as you all know, government declared 28 stimulus packages during COVID and post-COVID scenario with a value of BDT 1.92 trillion taka, of which 10 stimulus packages have been implemented by Islamic bank, total banking industry, having 1.69 trillion taka, and Islamic banking industry has also huge contribution in this area as well to implement the government priorities and implementation of these stimulus packages. If we look at the global aspect of Islamic banking, currently there are 526 Islamic banking around the globe, with 72 countries around the globe, and quantum of asset is around 4 trillion US dollar, of which 3 trillion US dollar is actually contributed by the Islamic banking system, which contribute around 6% of the global banking asset. And this is expected to grow 6 trillion mark by 2026. And Islamic finance market grew by around 11% in 2020. Now the question comes, why Islamic banking is growing faster than their conventional counterpart? Is it only because of religious emotion or something else? Several studies have been conducted, and it was revealed that it is not only because of religious significance, but also because of economic beauty and justification. That's why during global meltdown back in 2008 and 2009, we have seen that Islamic banking industry, not only in Bangladesh, but also around the globe, has showed their resilience compared to their conventional counterpart. And Islamic banking industry has expanded its operation not only in Islamic countries, but also in UK, USA, Germany, Argentina, Denmark, Luxembourg, Switzerland. So it indicates that it is not only because of religious emotion, but also the economic justification. So what are the key factors that actually drive this success? So I have identified some areas. There are many areas. So due to simplicity of discussion, I will focus on a couple of areas. In case of Islamic banking, money is not used as a commodity, rather it is used as a medium of exchange. And in case of Islamic banking, it's complete averse interest in all of its operation. So compounding is not allowed, which is declared haram in our Holy Quran. So it operates basically, for the welfare of the people. So it ensures fairness and justice in all sorts of its operation. And most importantly, Islamic banking investment is actually done in real asset based and real asset backed. I'm not going to elaborate more detail on these areas because there is no fictitious investment is there. So every investment has some real asset. So that's why it showed more resilience. And finally, it is more supervised investment. That's why you'll see the cost of Islamic banking is comparatively higher compared to their conventional counterpart. You see, different studies suggested these things. And finally, it encourages socially desirable enterprises and discourages undesirable one. And most importantly, that we say here, the relationship between banker and the client is not borrower and lender relationship. This is known as partnership. So whatever the mood they are taking finance, either in the form of murabaha, mudaraba, musharaka, whatever the form, they are the partner. So that's the actually secret behind the success of Islamic banking in Bangladesh as well as in the global context. I am almost at the fag end of my presentation. So let me focus on the prospect of Islamic banking in Bangladesh. I will touch a couple of areas. So firstly, we have tremendous prospect in Islamic banking because 1/4 of the world's total Muslim population is in Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is considered to be the university of microfinance. And you all know that I have also showed the statistics. 1/3 of the country's private sector banking system is running under Islamic banking system. And there is a huge growing demand of Sharia compliant product. That's why you see there are a good number of private sector banks which are actually like to convert their operation from convention to Islamic banking. And there is a huge scope of clientele base and financial inclusion. And in the meantime, Dhaka Stock Exchange and Chittagong Stock Exchange, have introduced Sharia indices. It is another milestone. And most importantly, recent initiative of central banks are in line with Maqasid al-Sharia. We have actually faced a lot of problem. Even last couple of years ago, there are few products for Islamic banking like BZIAB, Bangladesh Government Islamic Investment Bond, few product. But now there are a lot of products have been introduced, like with the initiative of the central bank as well as the government. So like Sovereign Investment Sukuk 2020, then comes to IBLF, Islamic Bank, liquidity facility, then pre-finance is a recent development. I'm not going to talk about more detail. Pre-finance, earlier Bangladesh Bank gave refinance against CMSME and agriculture. Now they are giving pre-finance, which is more Sharia compliant. So these are the initiative, very bold initiative that are actually given by our central bank to actually fulfill the maqasid of Sharia in Islamic banking. And definitely there are some strong forum like Central Sharia Board and IBCF. And finally, what we want to see in near future, we want to see for the better success of Islamic Banking Act. We have already passed 40 years journey of Islamic banking, but we yet to have a separate Islamic Banking Act. Probably government is working on these things. Inshallah, we'll get the act soon. And upgrading of Islamic banking guideline, although the guideline was issued in 2009 and there is no development in this area, Bangladesh Bank probably is working on this area. And most importantly, Islamic banking should be incorporated in the educational curriculum. My professor sir is with us. I must say that in our course curriculum in universities, there are theoretical aspects are actually carried out. So I think the practical aspect is far. I am a finance graduate, but I have to learn a lot of things after joining Islamic Bank. So I think practical aspects should be incorporated in the educational curriculum to give a better insight for the next generation students. And higher training in Islamic banking is very required. Sharia board in central banks, inshallah, hopefully we'll get it very soon. And research and development is the key to success always. And finally, uniform practices in all Islamic banks. We have seen that there are some disparity of practice of Islamic banking among the banks, but there should be a common platform. I think Islamic Banking Act and Islamic Banking revised Islamic Banking guideline will actually pave the way to give uniform practice in Islamic banking. And finally, and most importantly, international collaboration and branding is very important and key to success. So probably I have completed within 30 minutes. And I would like to conclude with saying this, that the remarks that I have passed, other than the fact, is my own and not necessarily the organization I am representing. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan Bhai. It was really composed, but definitely we all know that this is such a vast area, and the 40 years journey is not as an easy to cover within the 30 years, 30 minutes. Like in spite of that, like the whole picture you have portrayed, I believe that all of the participants got a snapshot and which will be helpful for all of us to dig the issue and the journey. I must say that this is a very glorious journey. So before going to the next panelist, I just want to share one observation by the global credit rating company, that's a Fitch. Fitch recently has discloses its economic outlook of Islamic banking and finance for the Middle East, and it says that in the coming year 2023, like its profitability will be continue to grow for the Islamic banks, and its liquidity will be the stable, asset quality will be stable, as well as it is the capital buffer will remain same. But as we all know that global turmoil, economic turmoil is going on about different economic indicators. In spite of that, like the proponents of the different like expert opinion should demonstrate the stability of the Islamic banking, which is also very encouraging for us. And in addition, the real cases we have seen in Bangladesh, how the Islamic banking concept has been contributing in the socio-economic development, and particularly one aspect has been nicely revealed by the keynote speaker, that is the inclusiveness, like inclusion in the marginal peoples have been included in the banking umbrella, as well as in the women empowerment has been also considered. So from industrialization also to give the access to the marginal people, like banking services has been ensured by the Islamic banking concept. So again, thank you, like Ryan Bhai, for like showing the snapshot. I must say 30 minutes was not enough,